Cars, trucks, farm equipment, construction machinery, forest products all roll in and out through the Port of Baltimore. And the collapse of the Key Bridge put into perspective just how important the port is to our economy. And now, tariffs on products from China, Mexico, and Canada stand to affect the country's financials, and that includes Maryland's as well. And joining us is Jason Cherubini from Loyola University, Maryland. Thanks for coming by. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
When tariffs are doing what tariffs are supposed to do, when things are well, what is the purpose of them in the economy?
Well, the purpose of tariffs is really to protect domestic manufacturing or domestic jobs, basically giving a level playing field between imports and exports.
When we talk about the effects, because I think this gets muddled, will it affect consumers worse than it ends up affecting the people that it should?
Well, that ends up being a trade-off in how you look at it. Okay. Most of the estimates are saying that the average household will see about $1,200 to $1,500 in increased costs in a given year, or at least in the short term due to the tariffs. But if the tariffs do what they're intended to do, or what we're told they're should do, we should see increased manufacturing, increased jobs coming back, which could in the long run boost the economy and boost people's paychecks.
So if I enact a tariff today, how far down the line do I see some of the things that you're explaining? Is it within a couple years, or could this take a decade to?
It's going to depend on the industry, really. In some of the industries, it's going to be shorter as we have prices balance out. In other industries, it's going to take longer. So in the last couple of months, there's been about $1 trillion of planned investment in manufacturing in the United States. $500 billion from Apple, $300 billion from NVIDIA, $100 billion from TSMC and others. Those are going to take longer because they're going to be building the factories and the manufacturing plants. But in other places, as local companies start to shift their purchasing and their supply chain more domestically, that'll be experienced in a much quicker term.
We've seen, tariffs are nothing new. They've been around forever. Is it the number that we see when we see 200%, we see the rapid fire? Is that what you think catches the minds of economists?
I think it's the number, it's the amount, and how it's going everywhere. As you said, tariffs have been around, and in a lot of the places, the tariffs are imbalanced. So one of the examples that's cited all the time is automobiles. For a U.S. manufactured vehicle to enter Europe, there's a 10% tariff. For a European manufactured automobile to enter the United States, there's a 2.5% tariff. That makes it easier for BMW or Mercedes to sell a vehicle in the United States than it does for a Cadillac or a Lincoln to sell in Germany.
So in the end, we could be balancing, in some cases, balancing some of the trade scales, yeah?
That's the positive theory on it. That's the goal that we're looking, is to try to lower that trade deficit that we've been experiencing, make it a more level playing field for American manufacturers, and to bring back a lot of manufacturing to the United States.
We didn't talk about this earlier, but I'm curious about the stock market. Were you surprised to see the roller coaster as some of these things began and then began to disappear, or was that expected?
Well, the stock market really is forward-looking. So everything we're seeing in those prices is not necessarily about what has happened or what's happening today. It's what the effect is going to be 3 months, 6 months, a year in the future. So even what we saw Wednesday afternoon after Powell's announcement, and generally a bit of a spike, when they didn't do anything, it was all about forward-looking. The fact that the Fed was still going to maintain 2 rate cuts this year gave confidence to the market that 3 months, 6 months, a year in the future, we were going to be doing better.
We've heard both Republicans and Democrats. In fact, here, Bill Ferguson was saying, listen, recession could be possible. And the president also saying, there could be I think he said, an adjustment period. Is that typical as you see so much flux in the economy?
Yeah, whenever there's flux and we're talking about the future, there's uncertainty. Again, going back to Powell on Wednesday, he said while the probability of a recession has ticked a little higher, it's still very low to the point that it's not really expected to happen, but technically the probability has increased.
One more thing, just talk to me about the everyman response. People have 401ks, they have money in stock market, some people want to buy a home. How should they play it, do you think, right now, as we see such flux right now?
Well, depending on how active they are, I think the American manufacturing sector is going to see an increase where some of your international who are importing or benefit from the importing may not see as well. But this isn't universal. Germany just announced, I think it was a $1 trillion spending plan on their own national defense. So European manufacturing in the defense sector, that skyrocketed based on their own economy. So there's going to be different sectors that are impacted differently. But the best thing for anyone in their 401k, if you're not actively investing, is that well-diversified portfolio that'll balance the positives and negatives of the effect of these tariffs.
About 30 seconds left. I asked you this off camera. Are kids, students, I should say, are they taking interest? Are they paying attention to this stuff?
With so much in the news and we're seeing so much of it, I think it's hard to avoid it. And I think where you're then paying attention is it is politicized, it is talked about, but the actual economic implications are things that they'll be the first to deal with as they enter the workforce, as they start their 401ks. So I think they have a little bit more interest in what their professional life will look like after college.
They know the real world is coming.
Exactly, like a freight train.
Right, thanks for coming by.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.